There are officially 2 weeks remaining in the Major League Baseball regular season. Let's talk about where the Tigers stand and what these last 12 games could look like. All today on Locked On Tigers.
You are Locked On Tigers, your daily Detroit Tigers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Tigers. I'm, of course, your host, Scott Bentley. Today is Tuesday, September 16th, 2025. Thank you so much for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. Welcome in. Welcome all, everybody. Happy Tuesday here. Off day on Monday, so we don't have a game to recap, which honestly is nice because there is like a billion kind of smaller news and notes surrounding the organization that wouldn't on their own take up a whole show, but also maybe are too long to just like slap at the end of a game recap in our normal stuff section. So really, this is going to be kind of like a makeshift, just 30 minutes of stuff. Okay. Truly what the people want. But there's a lot of stuff to cover here. We're going to talk a little bit about obviously the magic number, what the rest of the season looks like. We'll talk about injury updates. We'll talk about the Arizona Fall League. We'll talk about, small stuff, the new complex the Tigers are building and opening up. Like there's a lot of stuff to go over. So I want to start with the remaining schedule. The Detroit Tigers have 12 games left in their season, 2 weeks worth of baseball. They play Cleveland, Atlanta. Those 6 games is the final homestand of the year. Then they end, obviously, 6 minus 12, for all you math whizzes at home, with a 6-game road trip to end the year, Cleveland again, and then Boston. None of those games are easy gimme games. I understand Atlanta has had a disastrous season based on, expectations and what they've been at the last couple of years, but they still have almost all of those players. Obviously, they've gotten bitten by the injury bug for a couple years in a row now. And there's some, especially on their pitching side of things, there's certainly some players that aren't going to be playing that they wish were, but like there's still a lot of talent there. And there's still, it's not like an easy, series that you can just kind of waltz into and take 2 of 3 from with your eyes closed. Boston, a playoff hopeful that right now would be in a wild card spot. That's a postseason roster. And then 6 games of Cleveland. It's so fitting. I wish any other team, I wish, right? If you gave me the schedule and you were like, hey, 12 games left, you have to play one team in baseball for half of those games, rank them in order of like how much you'd want to play any team in baseball in 6 out of your last 12 games. This is a super niche hypothetical, okay, that probably is not necessary. But if I were, in theory, to rank the 29 other teams, Cleveland would be 29th. Not because they're the best roster in baseball, not because I guess maybe I am just like scared of them, but that comes from 2 things. A, they have just absolutely dominated the Tigers for the better part of a decade. Now, the last couple of years, that tide has slowly turned, thankfully, and the Tigers have been the better team and gotten the upper hand in the series last season and the second half, really, of last season, and then this season. But they've always been a thorn in the Tigers' side, and on top of that, they are on fire right now. And we'll preview that series again at the end. But your magic number is 7 at the time of this recording. And you play Cleveland 6 times. Also, for those keeping track at home, you have a 3-game lead for the second seed in the American League. So top 2 seeds in the AL get a bye in the first round. They do not have to play in the wild card round. That is what we are all rooting for. That's what we all want. That is a massive deal to me, and I've made that abundantly clear on this show. I really do not think this team should be playing in the wild card round, A, and B, I do not want this team to play in the wild card round. That is far too much writing on far too small of a sample size. Excuse me. So they have a 3-game lead over Seattle. Toronto is in the 1 seed. The Tigers have the 2 seed, and the Tigers have a 3-game lead over the Mariners, who currently have the 3 seed. So another reason, not just like, oh, you need to clinch the American League Central and kind of sleepwalk into the playoffs. No, you have something to play for because you want to a straight path to the divisional round. Okay, cool. ESPN came out with an article on Monday morning, I believe, that highlighted a poll that ESPN had sent out to Major League Baseball players, scouts, and executives, front office personnel, and asked them, anonymously, who was the biggest threat in the National League for the National League teams and the American League for the American League teams. Essentially, the question was, who do you want to play the least come postseason time? And the players said, well, one of the quotes from a anonymous player, I guess I should say, was that the Tigers really know how to win and that they are scary and that they think that if there's any team in the American League outside of the Blue Jays, that it is the Detroit Tigers. So the Tigers were voted as the second biggest threat in the American League. I don't know. I kind of expect it to just be the order of standings for the most part, but for whatever it's worth, the Tigers, the second seed, are, according to this poll of Major League Baseball personnel, the second biggest threat. The quote from the scout in this article was, the more that he or she watches the Tigers, the more that they think that the Tigers are actually better than their record indicates, and then highlighted that, and that's saying something because their record is already pretty darn good. So I thought that was interesting. Again, I don't take like a ton out of this, but the Blue Jays are first, the Tigers are second. Shocker in the record, the Blue Jays are first and the Tigers are in second. Let's talk about injuries, okay? 12 games left. Hopefully some players coming back to either help in the last couple of games of the regular season or come playoff time, especially with the AAA season ending sooner and before the Major League season. They got to figure out, you either got to go on a rehab assignment or you got to, just immediately join the Major League roster here. So we will talk about that right after this. First, though, got to talk to you all about our friends over at Nutrafol. You've probably seen a million ads of hair growth supplements and products and thought, sure, like that actually works. Well, there's a lot of products out there, and it's hard to know which ones are actually going to do anything. That's why you should give Nutrafol a closer look. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement brand, trusted by over 1.5 million people. And it's not just hype. This is a supplement clinically tested that targets the root causes of thinning and shedding with proactive approaches. There's so many great features of Nutrafol. You can see thicker, stronger hair with less shedding in 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering Locked On MLB listeners $10 off of your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com and enter promo code LOCKEDONMLB. That's Nutrafol.com, promo code LOCKEDONMLB. Also got to talk to you all about our good friends over at Game Time. There's nothing like catching a ball game live, the energy, the crowd, the chance to see your team in person, but actually getting the tickets, well, that's the tough part. Queues, logins, screens, surprise fees. It all takes the fun out of the adventure. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. Game Time is fast, easy, and backed by the Game Time guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is actually the price you pay. The app is super simple. I could even see the exact view from my seat before buying, and fees are included. My favorite feature that I talk about all the time, you know your total up front. There's no surprise fees at checkout. There's no, oh, you go to checkout and then magically your order is, double the price because of all the fees and tack-ons that a lot of the other places have. Price you see is the price you pay. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem with promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Segment 2, Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. As always, making us your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. And we will, of course, be back tomorrow recapping Game 1 against the Cleveland Guardians. Today, we're talking stuff. In Segment 2 here, we're going to talk about the injuries throughout the 40-man roster, kind of the players that we could hopefully see as a reinforcement down the stretch. This has been a big talking point on all of our off days, really for most of the month of September and even dating back to August. Javi, black eye, looks, like it's going to be, he got a shiner, like it's ugly, but he is fine and going to play and, not be on the injured list or anything. He took a picture and uploaded it to social media. And yeah, it is awfully purple. He certainly did hit right in the eye. So glad he's okay outside of, his appearance changing a little bit. Kyle Finnegan threw a bullpen session on, Sunday/Monday. They said that it was approaching and then they said that it was done. So whichever one of those 2 days it ended up being, but he threw a bullpen session, and all the reports from it were fantastic, like better than anybody thought, even from AJ's mouth. Like he said, it was max effort and pain-free and was honestly ahead of where we expected him to be. So that's fantastic news. And I'm not sure if they're going to, rush. I guess we'll see what the Tigers, magic number or playoff scenario looks like when he's eligible to come off the 15-day IL here later this week. But I would imagine that they will play it safe and just be like, okay, how much do we really need him back by the regular season? Let's just make sure he's 100% healthy by the postseason, especially because it's not an arm injury. So it's not like he has to ramp up the arm to get back to a place that they're comfortable. He's just got to make sure he can plant and throw, and that his mechanics haven't changed with the lower body injury. So that's good news, all fantastic, music to our ears, and is a guy that we definitely are going to need in this bullpen if the Tigers want to make a run in October. Sawyer Gibson-Long is going under further evaluation, got put on the injured list this weekend with neck stiffness. He got put on the injured list earlier this season with a neck strain as well. So hopefully that's something that they can get figured out, because he can be a difference maker, right? We've seen it in his major league career. It's just unfortunately this year coming back from Tommy John, not pitching in 2 years or whatever it was. And then, with the neck thing now, it's just been kind of a rocky road back to the majors. So we'll see. I'd imagine he's done for the rest of the regular season. I would be, surprised if they rushed him back in any capacity. Reese Olson continuing his throwing progression. I just, the more that comes out about this, the more updates that happen in regards to Reese Olson, the less confident I am that we're really going to see him back this year. I know some people are still kind of holding their breath and holding out hope for him to be a reliever, a multi-inning reliever in the postseason. I don't know. Maybe if they make the World Series, maybe. But I really don't think that that's something that is very likely at the present moment, at least from where I sit. Paul Sewald continues to pitch in AAA. Just pitched yesterday as well for the Mud Hens. I think that that's another guy that if in a perfect world, like ideally, they would love to get him a couple of innings in the regular season, especially if the Tigers, going into the final weekend of the season, the final series against Boston of the season, if they've already clinched a playoff spot and what seed they are, and there's really nothing else that can change, then get Sewald up here, give him some major league innings so that he can be, kind of tested a little bit more from major league hitting before the postseason. I would just love I would prefer if his first major league innings as a Detroit Tiger were not in the playoffs. And so if they can make that happen, then great. If not, like ultimately, I would still rather have him in the bullpen and just take a flyer on him than a handful of other guys that have been in the bullpen over the last couple of weeks. But that's, we'll keep an eye on that over these last 14 days, 12 games, whatever, 2 weeks of the season and see what comes of that. And then Matt Vierling began another rehab assignment in AAA over the weekend as well. So we will see what happens there. I think in a perfect world, Vierling comes back for the postseason and Trey Sweeney is left off the postseason roster. I think that that's a pretty easy swap that they could make. And honestly, like that raises the floor of your hitting, pretty, I don't want to say like super significantly, but it does raise the floor of what your offense can be. I'm not sure it's a huge ceiling raiser, given what we've seen from Matt Vierling this year, which has been not a whole lot. But I do think that is, you talk about outs that are given away in the lineup. With the way that Jake Rogers has been swinging lately, and then if you replace Vierling with Sweeney, you really don't have any. Like, I know Javi's numbers have plummeted in the second half and whatnot, but you don't have any just like obvious hole in the lineup if you make that swap, which would be really nice for depth purposes. And then AJ can play the matchups and get whatever out of anybody kind of. But yeah, that'll be interesting to see if he's ready in time again by the end of the regular season or if he's more of just a postseason ad. Next up, we have the Arizona Fall League rosters officially being announced. For those who are unaware, the Arizona Fall League, aka the AFL, is a league that starts after the minor league regular season ends. And it's an opportunity for the game's prospects to continue getting more reps after the regular season ends. They go to Arizona where the weather isn't really a factor. And they play last season. Jose Briseño put up legitimately what might be the best offensive AFL campaign in the history of the AFL. And so this year, the Tigers are sending 7 or 8. I think I have 7 names written down here to the Arizona Fall League. Those names are Dariel Frigio, Carlos Laquerica, Jake Miller, Kenny Serwa, Max Anderson, Kevin McGonigal, and Jack Penny. So going over these names, you have a couple of just relievers that they want to get more reps in, which is usually, again, like that's really the main purpose of the AFL is to, focus on a specific aspect of, some prospect's game and get them to get more playing time in that scenario. Jake Miller is super interesting. A lot of people were, myself included, were really excited about Jake Miller after spring training. This is a guy that really burst onto the scene in 2025 spring ball and was a lefty that had really good velo, was really impressive in the Tiger, and he was in Major League camp and was pitching in spring training games, and then got hurt and missed a large majority of this season. And so this is an opportunity for him to get more innings under his belt now that he's healthy again. Really only pitched at the beginning of the season and then the very end of the season. Kenny Serwa is a fun story. He's the guy that threw like an 87, 86 mile an hour knuckleball and went viral online. And the Tigers signed him to a minor league deal. And he's been good. Like this isn't just, they signed a social media guy for clicks and now it's like whatever. And he's going to fizzle out into nothing. Like, He's been good. He had a sub-4 ERA this year, had a promotion at one point, like moved up a league. Like he's been legitimately good. And so getting him more innings, I think he's 26, 27 years old. So yeah, like not a guy that you can just be like, oh, we have all the time in the world. Like you kind of got to see what you have in him at this point. I especially when, you're throwing a knuckleball most of the time. But has some other, can throw into the low mid 90s with a fastball as well. So yeah, man, I love that decision. And then on the position player side of things, Max Anderson is going to the AFL. I think this makes a ton of sense as well. I think my expectations for him in a perfect world is you would like to see him really kind of hit very well. Against this level of competition, I think he should be really good offensively. This is more so, and Lynn Henning of the Detroit News actually wrote a great article kind of highlighting, he talked to, people in the Tigers front office and got some quotes about why they're sending certain players and whatnot. So I encourage you to go read that and support the Detroit News and Lynn there. But one of the big talking points around Max Anderson has just been getting him more reps at third base. This is a guy that played second base in college, came up through, his beginning of pro ball playing second base. The move to third base has been solid. I don't think anyone's like super alarmed or think that it's impossible to stick, but there's still like a lot of innings that he needs there. So they're going to get him some more reps at third base, and I think that's probably the biggest motivator there. Kevin McGonigal, I think, is a similar conversation, obviously with a different position in mind. I expect him to destroy this pitching, okay? I expect him to absolutely annihilate the pitching in the AFL. I do agree with the decision, again, because of defense. If there's any hole in McGonigal's game, it's not even a hole in terms of like he's bad defensively. It's just he's not elite defensively like he is at the plate. And so I think, he was hurt at one point this year, so you just get him some more at-bats in general. But really, I think this is for getting him more innings at shortstop. They want him to stick at shortstop so badly because he would be so unbelievably valuable there. Now, he's going to be valuable wherever he plays because he is like potentially a generational hitter. But like this is a situation where the maximizing his value would be at shortstop. So you might as well see if you can get him some more reps there and get him to stick. Who isn't there? That was also a big question. Max Clark, Hao-Yu Lee, Bryce Rayner, a few other pitchers that aren't going to be there, weren't invited. Clark has a wedding. I believe it's his own, has stated in that Lynn Henning article. So that kind of makes sense. And he also has, as pointed out by Lynn, has more plate appearances than McGonigal this season because Clark didn't miss very much time at all with injury, whereas McGonigal missed a solid, chunk of the first month or so of the season. Bryce Rayner still hurt himself. Obviously, he's not going to be there. Hao-Yu Lee, I mean, I don't know. I think he's kind of outgrown that league. Like, he's a guy that's been to the AFL before. I'm not really sure there's too much else for him to gain going up against guys that he's probably, like, on a higher level than. And then, as I mentioned, I saw some people like, oh, like, why is McGonigal going but not, like, Clark and Briseño? We already talked about Clark. As I said earlier, Jose Briseño literally has the only Triple Crown season in Arizona Fall League history. He put up maybe the best season that anyone has ever had in the history of the AFL last year. That there is really no reason for him to go back there again this season. Unless it was, I guess, for defensive purposes. But again, like I feel like that's probably not a worthy trade-off. Okay, let's get to our last break, and then I got a few more news and notes before we preview this Cleveland series. We'll do that right after this. Got to talk to you about our friends over at FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. So, are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. All right, everybody, welcome back. Your third and final segment of Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in as always. Final segment here before we get to the preview. Just got a handful of small stuff to kind of go over. We have Wilmer Flores was released from the organization, man. Just really sad is kind of the emotion, I think. Injuries really just did a number on his career, it seems like. Everybody tried. The organization tried. They moved him from starter to reliever. They had him throwing 100 out of the bullpen in spring training of 2024. Like a year and a half ago, this dude was throwing 100 in the bullpen, and people, myself included, were like, he could be an elite reliever. Is now cut, released from the organization. He tried. Injury bug just kept biting. Was such a great story, too. As a guy that was an undrafted signing in the 2020 season and really kind of splashed onto the scene in 2022, I believe it was, at the minor league level as a starter, and really rose up, got promoted a couple of times that season. Then some injury stuff in 2023, comes back in 2024 as a reliever, is throwing gas, and then has just been hurt for a large, either hurt or on the field, and just clearly not the same and struggling ever since. And it's really unfortunate. So hopefully he lands on his feet, can find maybe another team to take a chance on him, maybe fix some stuff, get healthy. But really unfortunate news there. Matt Manning, DFA'd by the Phillies, was DFA'd by the Tigers a couple of months ago now. Was picked up by Philadelphia. Now is DFA'd by the same organization. Yeah, I mean, I still root for him. I still hope that he can figure it out. But he's another guy that, at the time, there's always such a brash reaction to DFAs for the Tigers. And it's like, oh, I wouldn't have given up on him, whatever. And Matt Manning had a lot of those just because he was such a highly regarded prospect at one point. But I think that this is a testament to like where he's at. The team that claimed him when the Tigers DFA'd him has now DFA'd him themselves like 4 weeks later. So really unfortunate. Hopefully he can figure it out as well. Both of those guys, Wilmer Flores and Matt Manning, both former top 100 prospects. Not too long ago either. Hopefully they can figure it out, both in their late 20s now. Speaking of former Tigers prospects, Cody Clemens had a 3 home run game the other day. Good for Cody, man. Good for Cody. That trade is just so weird to look back on. The Gregory Soto trade. Nick Maton, I don't even know. Obviously Vierling, solid piece. Soto's bounced around for, played for 3 other teams. Just a weird trade of not a whole lot for anybody. But, I mean, I guess the Tigers make out the best with Matt Vierling. Evan Woodbury of MLive reported this weekend that Anibal Sanchez will be honored at Fiesta Tigres, which is Hispanic Heritage Night. That'll be super cool, man. Anibal, one of the more underrated players, dare I say, like, of that era. But really, in terms of Tigers lore, is they just had so many Cy Young winners in their rotation, and he wasn't one of those. He won an ERA title with the Tigers. That Tigers rotation had 4 guys that either had won or would win Cy Young awards, and then a guy that had an ERA title. Unbelievably talented, and so it's really cool for him to come into town and for the Tigers to honor him on Hispanic Heritage Night. So that'll be super cool. September 19th and 20th, I believe, is what Woodbury reported. What else do I have written down here? Cameron Maben responded to the allegations against him in the Athletic article we talked about last week. I'm sure that will be very easy to keep track of and all over the internet as more details continue to unfold. We've talked about it a couple of times since then, so I'll be sure to, as news comes out, we'll obviously talk about it as we always do. But he responded to them and really it seemed like denied wrongdoing, was tweeting out like screenshots of text conversations with people, etc. Said that he was never told that was the reason that his contract wasn't renewed either. So take that with however you interpret it. And again, there will be plenty, I'm sure, more information but around like all of the angles and all of the people that were talked about in those. So yeah, and like maybe not a part of the Tigers organization anymore either. So along with most of the players in that piece. Anything else? Oh, I mean, something else I did want to point out, there's a new Tiger Player Development Academy complex in Lakeland, which is something that Scott Harris has done a great job of, really. And, you know, I've been frustrated with him at times, but there's obviously a lot of good surrounding the organization since he took over as well. And that's something he's been really forward about, is making sure that the facilities and the complexes and you know, everything really, I mean, you even talk about the, you know, like the foreign complex leagues and whatnot, just making sure that the Tigers are well represented there and have good facilities and are up to par in that regard. So tip of the cap there. That's kind of a cool story. Okay. Yeah. Now we got final homestand of the year, everybody. Final homestand of the 2025 campaign. 3-game series against Cleveland. It's Mize against Joey Cantillo, then TBD for Cleveland in games 2 and 3, while the Tigers will throw Flaherty and hopefully Tarek Skubal in the finale on Thursday. Cleveland is 9-1 in their last 10 games and is on a 4-game winning streak going into this ball game. They're 2.5 out of a wild card spot still and 6.5 out of the American League Central, but those numbers have gone down significantly over the last 2 weeks. They just took 3 of 4 from Tampa Bay, 3 of 4 from Kansas City, and then swept the Chicago White Sox. Kyle Manzardo hitting well. Stephen Kwan, not having his usual Stephen Kwan year, but is a guy that is always seems to do really well against the Tigers. J-Ram, the epitome of a Tiger killer. CJ Kafis, a guy that doesn't have a super high batting average, but is walking and hitting for some power there at the bottom of that lineup, has been decent for them over the last couple of weeks as well. But I think the biggest factor is their pitching has returned to form, in the bullpen especially. You know, you have a lot of really impressive relievers in that bullpen, a bullpen ERA that was, you know, would rival any of the best bullpens in the history of baseball last year. This year took a little bit of a step back. Obviously, they trade somebody in the offseason, and then Clase goes down for these gambling allegations. Like there's a lot of factors that go into that. Part of it's just natural regression as well, kind of back to the mean there. But over the last, 3 weeks, the bullpen has been back to being absolutely phenomenal. And then they've gotten some great starting pitching from Gavin Williams. Parker Messick, maybe someone that not a lot of people have heard of, has been fantastic for them over his last few starts. So yeah, like I said, you got 12 games left. You play Cleveland 6 times. And you got a 6.5 game lead in the Central. So take care of business. Go win the American League Central. Please, for the first time in over a decade, go win your division and cement yourself as not only an American League Central winner, but as a team that is going to get a first round bye. I am in my I guess technically now late 20s. That sounds disgusting. But the last time the Tigers won the American League Central, I was in high school, and I wasn't like a senior either. Like I was like learning how to drive the last time the Tigers won the AL Central. Go do that and then focus on bigger and better things like not playing in the wild card round. Thanks for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. And we will, of course, be back tomorrow recapping game 1 against Cleveland. Buckle up, everybody. Buckle up. It's a lot of Guardians ball here these last couple of weeks, and Tigers got to win some ball games, okay? It's stressful, but we'll go through it together. Peace and love. Going to therapy's dope. I'll catch y'all tomorrow. Go Tigers.